maybe a day old or so. It's after a day or so now. But what have I got in today's program? I've got four gentlemen who are really, really interesting in a sense that the topic that we have in today's program has been around with us for quite some time. And we've discussed it here on this program a number of times. And it's something that is not really going to go away. It's something that is still there, and it's something that we need to see how we can address it so that the rest of the world and Africa gets to understand it. Now, in 2020, a civil war broke out in the Horn of Africa. Unlike any other wars in other parts of Africa, this time it was a country that had been stable for decades and was admired by many other countries, both on the African continent and abroad. Ethiopia, the country that has the headquarters of the African Union in its capital city, Addis Ababa, became part of the usual African story after all, when war broke out between the federal government and its regional government of Tigray. I hope I got that right. Now, the question is why. This is what we tried to answer the other time. After so many years of the country hosting so many African conferences on good governance and being a role model to many of them, why now? Why? What is happening in the country at the moment is sad, and many say there is a genocide taking place as the world is silent. That's what we're going to discuss. Let's have a short break.
Christian is a hard-working, focused young man who will go all lengths to achieve results. We have worked with him for some time now, and we will recommend him to anyone who wants to buy a land. If you want your valuations done on your land, he's the best man. If you need land title documents done for your company, I would recommend him to be the right person to do so. In the near future, if I want to buy a land again, I will go for Christian, and I recommend you to do same.
Welcome back. The four gentlemen, as I said, are here with me, and we are going to have wonderful, wonderful discussions. And I would really, really request that you pay very good attention as far as this issue is concerned. It's affecting most Africans, and I do hope that we'll have something to learn and make sure that as we go along, we might help others, especially those who might be in need from that country. Now, on my immediate right is Dr. Mary Gabriel, a medical doctor from Ethiopia, and was a surgeon, and is a surgeon here in UK. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yeah. And next to him is Mr. Adeike Makinde. I thought I got that right. A lawyer, a barrister, and who lectures in criminal law and public law at University of London, at a university in London. He's a contributor to a number of websites for which he has written essays, commentaries on international relations, politics, military history, and he has served as a program consultant and provided expert commentary on BBC World Service Radio, China Radio International, and Voice of Russia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Alex Benahue Brani, the researcher and lecturer from Tigray. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for
Now,
having us.
the key thing that has been bothering me all along, and it bothered me with the two programs that I've done on Ethiopia, what's going on, that's one thing. The talk of a genocide is a key thing here, because when it comes to people being killed and the pictures and the stuff that we always see, it's very, very disturbing, because we saw this in Rwanda, we saw this in other parts of Africa. Now, is there a way in which a country like Ethiopia, this whole thing can be put to a hold? I know Abiy, we've talked about Abiy and so on, but why the sudden silence, yet the pictures are there? Everything is there. Anyone who wants to start on this issue? Why? I mean, we know the war has been going on, but the genocide side of it hadn't started yet, because at the time the war was going on, and we knew, okay, prisoners are supposed to be kept, and so on and so forth. But we were not really seeing the other side, which is appearing now, which is extremely sad. Why now? Yes, doctor?
Well, when I look at the word genocide,
Yeah.
I think the challenge is the definition.
Okay.
The dictionary definition is easy for everybody to understand.
Yeah.
But then you have the UN definition,
Mm-hmm.
and on how to understand it and how to take steps. When you see warning signs from it.
Yeah.
Now, if I ask you what is a mass shooting, you will be able to describe it easily. Where you have an incident where 4 people or more have been shot,
Yeah.
then that would be defined as a mass shooting. But when it comes to the definition of genocide,
Yeah.
how many people would have to die
Yeah.
before somebody says there is a genocide happening? And when the word genocide was made
Yeah.
in 1946,
Okay.
and then it was modified afterwards, and the UN accepted it, the whole world, civilized world, said never again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you thought after the Holocaust experience, the world would never see another genocide. But it's still happening despite the strong conviction of the whole world not to go through that experience again.
But
And then you ask why.
Yeah. Why?
Well, I think looking at it, there are 4 reasons. One is denial.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is an outright denial. Secondly is failure to recognize it.
Yeah.
And the other one is failure to act. And there is a lack of appetite to acknowledge and act on the knowledge that you have, and knowing what mandate to exercise.
Yeah.
And last but not least is the political order of the world. Even at the UN level,
Yeah.
to be able to discuss genocide, there is the element of politics that plays, and the various interests of the superpowers
Yeah.
in the country that is being considered. So it's not that genocide is not happening or there aren't warnings in the world, but these are some of the factors that I see that are preventing people from preventing a lot of loss of lives.
Okay. Now the thing is, when it comes to confirming, because the key point here is that when you look at what happened in Rwanda, it's only when the bodies were flowing into Uganda, and that's when the French realized what was going on. They had left Rwanda in a mess. It was like the way it is in Afghanistan now. The killings had started, but the French knew this, and they just went away. Then they said, oh no, we made a mistake. But then bodies had started flowing, because there was a lot of evidence going on in Rwanda. That's when the world started waking up, because we were actually seeing what was on the ground. But we are not seeing anything in Ethiopia. That's why it's difficult. When they send pictures, yes, but the world always acts after. This is the problem. What do you think should happen now? I mean, you're well informed about Ethiopia. Yeah, you want to come in? Yeah.
Define and frame our legal definition of genocide before, taking the aspects of genocide.
Yeah.
As Dr. Merid has set it off. I would give it to the professional definition to Mr. Ade Makende to give us, the legal definition of genocide.
Okay.
And the accepted society. Then I have a common sense, definition. And then we will come back to the question.
Yeah.
Why it happens,
Yeah.
why it's not recognized, why it's not, changing, why it's not stopping.
Yeah.
Okay. The floor to you.
Yeah.
Mr.
Well, I don't want to belabor the issue of a legal definition, because it really is a political matter.
Okay.
If we look at history, we look at contemporary times, we see that what is highlighted as genocide is dependent on the particular situation.
All right.
Everybody's familiar with Rwanda from
Yeah.
1994, but there were 2 genocides in Burundi by the Tutsis against the
Hutus, yeah.
against the Hutus in the 60s and in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so the world did not come to the rescue. There were hundreds of thousands of lives involved. It was very systematic. So, I mean, just very briefly, okay, it's about systematically killing,
Yeah.
trying to destroy life, culture, and the ability to, to sustain life.
Yeah.
And I think it's also worthwhile noting certain resolutions by the United Nations, as well as the Rome Statutes, which do add to it, in the sense that apart from what we can define genocide, but we also should realize that starvation and there is a starvation crime, and there's also rape as a weapon.
Yeah.
All of these things feature in the situation with Tigray.
Yeah.
I should also emphasize, before I hopefully just continue briefly with my narrative about history and the contemporary situation, but I think it's worthwhile just mentioning that as far as I'm concerned, I'm here not as a proselytizer, promoter for the Ethiopian government or the TPLF.
Yeah.
I'm here objectively speaking, and my view, getting straight to the point, is that genocide is in the making.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
War crimes have already been committed.
Of course.
And that isn't a judgment about saying the Ethiopians are wrong in terms of how it started, or the TPLF, the Tigrays are right. There's certain things that are irresolvable at the moment.
No, to cut you short, the point I'm trying to look at is at what point does the UN, does the world steps in? Because this mistake was made in Rwanda. I know you talked about the 60s, but the problem then, we didn't have as much media attention as it is at the moment. We didn't have phones which you could, where the WhatsApp or media, where information can reach somebody within minutes. Now we have that sort of technology, whereby even now we have drones, where Americans actually went with the drones and saw what was on the ground. So the whole thing can now be got within a matter of actually seconds. They can know what's happening, but there isn't any actions.
Well,
that is why I'm saying, look, if a definition comes out, maybe the UN would say, hey, I think we need to sit down and do something about it, because they were saying so. If they had known about that in Rwanda, they would have acted, but the French never alerted them, and that's why several French officers were put in prison because of that. Yeah, you get my point.
I think yes. I think again, as my fellow guest here started off with, things are political.
Yeah.
If you say, when should the UN intervene? When should the African Union intervene? They should have intervened months ago.
I know.
Do you see? And then this definition of genocide. I mean, there's no. The point I'm making is that you referred obviously to figures, and maybe you can look at those figures and say this is the proportion of a certain people. The Tigrayans are no more than 9% or less than that of the whole of Ethiopia, and that destroying lives, physically destroying them, would be different from a people with a larger population. And I don't think that is necessarily valid. I feel that what constitutes genocide in terms of systematically seeking to destroy people, maybe they're not mass graves at the moment, but the way in which it's been verified that oxen, water resources, farming have either been destroyed, taken away by Eritrean soldiers and Ethiopian National Army soldiers. The conditions of genocide are there because it's going to lead to starvation, because Tigray is a food deficit. environment, very rugged terrain, very difficult to farm, and also on the western part, this disputed area with Amharas, the lands appear to be being expropriated from Tigrayans, and that is one area that you have arable land. So I would say right from the get-go, but I still have to say and emphasize that the issue of what is genocide and how much public consciousness is there about things, it all depends on politics. Because at the moment, they are. I'm going to leave China out of this. Although the United States is saying that there is specifically a genocide occurring, there are grounds for actually disputing it, not saying that the Chinese are not doing something wrong. But I will compare it with the situation in Myanmar and Yemen. Both situations of genocide. It was clearly stated that that was the case in Burma, former now Myanmar, with the Rohingya.
The Rohingya Muslims.
But in Yemen, there is also a genocide there. There has been a genocide taking place. But the reason is because the United States and Britain are supporting the Saudi forces who are attacking the rebels there.
The reason I'm asking these questions is based on the fact that when we know where the red line has been crossed, and then we ask questions, because we, the Africans, this is where our biggest problem is. We are looking at America, we are looking at Britain, we are looking at the superpowers to make decisions. But the African Union were discussing this thing a month or so ago, and one of the things that other African Union members were saying, the red lines have not been crossed. We need the evidence. Now, regardless of what Tigrayans are saying, the African Union were saying, well, according to us and Abe, the line has not been crossed. Now, which line needs to be crossed before you realize what's going on? Okay. I know, Alex, I don't know whether you can help there.
Sure. I think I'm the right juxtaposition in terms of knowing the Tigrayan and the Ethiopian situation. Because I'm also not a member of either of the Ethiopian or the Tigrayans.
Okay.
I'm going to speak it purely from academic point of view and from my own experience as well. No text, no professional can define, what has happened in Tigray. I'll come back to the textual definition. But what has happened, in Tigray has been, fulfilled according to the academics and lawyers who define, genocide. I'm sure Ade will correct me if I'm wrong. The level of the intensity or the degree of crime between perpetrator and victim depends the intention defined. What has happened in Tigray, the girl who has been, raped and the lads who have been killed hadn't had any personal relationship, so to speak, with those perpetrators from Eritrea or Tigray, from the center. They had some intended, planned, organized action they were imposing on Tigrayans. And if you see, and we come back to the academic definition of genocide, there are 10 stages.
10 stages,
10 stages of genocide. One is classification.
Okay.
Them and us. This has been going on even before the war started. The second one is civilizing. This has happened with the Jews in 1945, remember. And with the Tigrayans were very identified easily, because we have a facial mark, hardworking, every tribe, every nationality, every section of society has got, a certain, defining, traits. So the traits have been, magnified negatively. So that's what symbolization comes into practice in Tigray. And then discrimination, it started discriminating, not individual criminals or those who perpetrate any opposition against the government, but wholesale discrimination of that tribe, of that background, of that ethnicity. This is the third one. The fourth stage is dehumanizing, like we had in Hutu and Tutsi,
in Rwanda.
We call them, cockroaches. And what do they call us here? Just last week, 2 weeks ago, he called the Tigrayans the cancer. The weeds. Weeds and cancer have to be rooted out. This is what he said literally. And then that comes, organizational. He had organized, both internal and external forces to wage, this genocide. The external forces he had organized were the Sudanese, which the officials had admitted, from the horse's mouth. He said, I'm going to kill the Tigrayans, seal off, don't let them out.
The border,
He said that, and it has been said by...
I've seen the report. I've seen the report.
It's all in the public domain.
He
negotiated and discussed for 2 years with Isaias Afwerki, whereby, knowingly or unknowingly, he uttered that the game is over. This is what he has planned, Isaias. Isaias has benefited a lot from Tigray, rather than, anything.
That's the president of
Eritrea.
Eritrea.
And instead of paying, benevolence, he will become malevolent, because Tigrayans have done a good job on Ethiopia in bringing economic development when it was led by our late Prime Minister Meles, who was our schoolmate for both of us. And then comes, polarization. The polarization started 2018. These people have to root them out, planning, plotting, and they start blocking, roads, main roads, so that they will rebel and do some chaos. Then in revenge, he would do something. But the Tigray leadership was so tolerant, so patient, so preserved, and they waited until the last straw, comes to break, the silence. And then the preparation. Preparation has been articulated well by late, general who passed away a month ago. Damara. You have heard it on TV. I'm ready. Can we start? Yeah, go ahead. This has been, hijacked, from telephone conversation. The commander and the commander on the field. They were ready already before the November 14, before the outbreak of the war. They were already on the border, including the Eritrean forces and the Ethiopian forces. Okay? And then they start the persecution. The persecution started, wholesale rounding up any Tigrayans. Officers, 17,000 fine science of the country, not of Tigray, of Ethiopia, who practiced and who participated in peacekeeping in many parts of the world, have been imprisoned in a concentration camp. Then comes the last one is extermination.
Extermination,
This is what he did. Mass killing, mutilating even dead bodies. Mass rape.
Now,
Wait, let me finish then. Mass rape and total war annihilation. He thought he would finish the war, within 2-3 weeks. But what he said, even before the war started, 2 days or a week, many youngsters will die, many mothers will weep, many stores will be destroyed. All they did was they carried out, election. If Tigrayans could carry the election without any cost, what does it cost him? He'd have said, go ahead, if it doesn't cost me anything. And if you are protecting your own people from corona, why not? Would be the best way he could win the Tigrayans to his side. And by outsmarting TPLF, by doing more economic development. And instead, he destroyed all the economic institutions, infrastructures, universities, clinics, hospitals. That's part of genocide. Because these are not military installations. These are civil economic installations which has nothing to do with war. And then killing civilians, youngsters, is part of the extermination. The last one is denial. The denial of Holocaust, what has happened in the UK. David, how he ran away to France. And burying, facts, destroying, documents, and threatening, witnesses. And finally, blocking any independent investigation. What else?
There's something which is interesting here. Now, USAID administrator Her name is Samantha Powers. Has been in Ethiopia for a very, very long time. And on her comment, she says the two-party, Tigrayan People Liberation Movement, and the government were being requested at some point to withdraw from the regions of Ahara and of Afar. And the problem was that she's facing as being a neutral person is that when you want to go into an area where the war is and you're told, no, you can't go there, both sides, the Tigrayan side and the government side, cannot allow independent outsiders to go into the sites which they control. Could this be, because this comes out such that if someone has got nothing to hide, then it will let the others come in and have a look. The Ethiopian government doesn't want, definitely, Western media, the BBCs and so on, to go in these areas and verify what is happening. And neither does the Tigrayan Liberation Front. Now, this brings in the whole issue of, okay, should a neutral person, because if you can't get the verification of this information, who are you going to believe? I hope you understand what I'm saying. We had this in Uganda when Museveni was fighting a bush war. He could sometimes not want the Western media, because then they would be showing the areas where he is, and he didn't want that, because then the army, the government army of Obote would know and maybe try and get him. Now, the Obote government also didn't want foreign observers and so on. But both were saying, look, we've got extermination going on. The villagers are being killed and so on. How do we verify it? But eventually, Museveni realized it was a propaganda that would win him the war. So he started allowing the Western media. How do you see this? Because we are outsiders. We want to verify everything that you're saying.
I think let alone genocide, any conflict has a huge price.
Yeah, yeah.
I approach this subject from a humanitarian point of view. And as a doctor, I have great respect for human lives.
Yeah.
That's why I say the very definition of genocide has a big problem, because it seems like the world is waiting for a huge number of people to die, and then it would be like the saying, the dog barked after the hyena left. You know?
I like that.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Prevention is
better
not
than-
only better,
Yeah.
but it's cheaper as well.
Yeah.
So what Samantha has said is just common sense
Yeah, yeah,
to show restraint.
yeah.
I mean, we've seen here the British government, in the end, had to make a dialogue with the IRA. And
Yeah,
have settled
yeah.
down.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
this is in
yeah.
the Western world.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
at the end of the day, for any political problem, you have to end up having a dialogue.
Exactly, exactly.
But
yeah.
why pay the price in between?
Yeah, yeah.
Because every conflict widens the rift between communities.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And genocide becomes unbridgeable. And that is the problem. And yes, the initiative shown by the Ethiopian government, for whatever reason, to do a retreat, or ceasefire, it's a good initiative.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we have to look at the total picture. What happened? A bridge was broken
Yeah.
on the western side of Tigray, so humanitarians cannot access it.
Yeah, yeah.
And there wasn't unfettered access. And it's like somebody is coming and shocking you, because I think for the first time what we are seeing is, war being used as a weapon.
Exactly,
As a
exactly,
weapon.
exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and that is
Food,
that is
food,
the
is,
most-
food is being used as a weapon.
Exactly. And
They're not
how
letting
long-
any
how
food
long
in.
can you stay without food?
Yeah, yeah.
And you have children as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the short-term and long-term effect of the starvation on the community at large, apart from the other atrocities that, and I think going back to what Alex was saying
yeah.
earlier on, it's so easy to define the 10 states.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And we're not expecting them to come in sequence.
Yeah.
It's like going from the first floor to the 10th floor.
Yeah.
You can take a lift and be
Or
in
you
the 10th
can
floor in
walk. Or
seconds.
you can walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So at what time would you say a wildfire has to be restrained in California or Australia?
Yeah, yeah.
The moment you see a fire,
You
you
stop
know
it
what
there,
is going,
you
it's
stop
going to
it-
be devastating.
Yeah, you stop
So
it straight
there
away.
are
Yeah.
all the indications that this is going to be a genocide.
Yeah.
There is a threat, there is a warning. And, things are happening simultaneously. So,
Yeah.
so in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
So why shed tears like Clinton after Rwanda had already been done? So I think the world needs to wake up.
Yeah.
And all the actors need to act,
Yeah.
to wake up.
Yeah.
There is no one to gain from this conflict.
Of course, of course.
It's going to be a total loss.
Yeah.
And And also there is the issue of transparency, as you said,
Yeah.
and credibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an issue, with a prime minister who blatantly said there are no Eritreans in this war.
And then they're packed across.
And
Everybody could see that.
managed to convince the United Nations Secretary General,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
came out publicly and said, "I believe him."
Yeah. No,
And so many things have happened. Now, the issue is, who do you trust?
Yeah.
Now, if somebody is using the mechanism of you try to convince the people you can
Yeah.
and confuse the others,
Yeah.
I think we have a long way to go.
You thought he thought it was going to be an easy war. He would go in November, take over the whole place, and then put his men there, and that was the end of it. He thought it was going to be an easy war. That is why whenever he was telling, he was so confident that there won't be any problem. What do you think in terms of scrutiny? If you have nothing to hide, that's the key thing. Then they show us. They're telling that to the Taliban now. If you have nothing to hide, then you have to let the Western media in. But now they're saying, no, we don't want. You have to go. When the Americans leave on the 31st, you're going with them as well. Then you have something to hide.
Yeah.
Is this...
There is that lack of transparency, and the way the conflict had been planned in advance was leading to that conclusion. The unfortunate thing is that these so-called police actions, as Abiy Ahmed intended it to be, they don't tend to be like that, a quick surgical strike and everything is done. That's what happened at the beginning of the Nigerian Civil War, when Major General Gowon declared a police action. But then the things escalated. You had foreign actors becoming involved, and it became total war.
It's same thing. He thought it was a simple war. They will go into the Yoruba, Igbo's areas, and that's it. And then they come out. But then it became something.
It was obviously couched in terms of decapitating the leadership. I mean, I think a lot of the TPL leadership, I think that's a bit of a generic term. Tigrayan political and military figures. A lot of them were arrested on the Ethiopian mainland before the attack. But what has happened is that even if you said, I know there's this argument about, on the one hand, unitary system and a federal system. I see it all being about ethnic chauvinism. But the point is, when you then are fighting for what you say is Ethiopia, Ethiopian as a political contiguous country, as a cultural entity, albeit different ethnicities, you expect to be fighting a war of unity. And so you've got to be very careful how you fight that war. You need to do that in terms of trying to say that, well, it may be the leadership, but so you target the leadership. That has not happened because it's evidently a war against the Tigrayans as a whole. That's an objective
it is,
thing.
It's
got, so he's gonna, if he had good intentions from the start, and I know most Tigrayans would say that was not the case. And perhaps a lot of Ethiopians would say, would back it up purely from the basis that there was this pre-existing tension. People had enough of the TPLF, despite their achievements on the economic front. They were ruling the country in an iron-fisted way, and there was that the demonization of Tigrayans started at that point. I wrote an essay at the time, the iron-fisted Ethiopian state back in 2016. And I thought that this was going to lead to an inter-Hamwe kind of situation. Directed against
like in Rwanda,
the Tigrayans. It hasn't gone like the Rwandan way, but it has its own features here. And that's unfortunate. Because you can say you're prosecuting the war against the particular leadership, but that leadership is indistinguishable from the person who is attacking the Ethiopian national side, federal side, and also from the Tigrayans who identify with the people who they perceive as protecting them. So, yes, you need transparency. Even in the brutal Nigerian civil war, you did have foreign observers.
Of course, of course, of course.
And so that is a
everywhere
big mistake that is being
even,
made.
Even in Vietnam, the Americans had their own, journalists were there following them. Some journalists were even killed during that war. And in Biafra war as well, they had journalists in there who were killed as well. But they went there on at their own risks. It happens. Now, the key thing, another key thing here is that the Horn of African director, Letitia Bandai, asks the government of Ethiopia to stop profiling and just find suspicion in Tigrayans and produce information of where, because now there's a huge, it's part of what you're saying about profiling. The profiling is part of the, I think, the 10 programs that genocide that you've just said, whereby if you're walking down the street in Addis Ababa and you look like somebody who comes from Tigray, the police have a right to stop you, and straight away, if your papers and everything direct that you're actually from that region, then you're taken away. Now, that thing has been happening, and the Western media's taken on to that. I was even surprised the Russians also commented on them, because the Russian TV, RT, were filming in the capital when a group of Ethiopian soldiers picked up a number of people, and they were asking them and said, then people were saying, why don't you ask the other ones? But because the profile had already been done with these ones who are walking, so straight away they knew they had come from Tigray, because there are people who know. I come from Uganda. A northerner, and someone from northern Uganda wouldn't really disappear from my site, I would know. Or eastern Uganda, I would know, because the features and everything. Now, that sort of profiling has ended up having a lot of Tigrayans into prison, and that's what Letitia was saying here, that it should stop straight away, because not everybody from Tigray is a bad person or is involved in a war or something like that. This is part of that. Now, outside here, we can talk, but how can this, where does the image of Abiy go now as a Prime Minister of Ethiopia if he has his men doing something like this?
Okay, you have compounded the questions now. Let's go to the USAID director, power. This question, that's a serious one. She said everybody has to come back to its place, anti-war. That could be very diplomatically,
we're putting it,
well put. In actual fact, what the TPLF or Tigray Defense Force are doing is just resisting the war. The war we have being waged now is a siege, full stop. There was no retreat, so to speak. He said, it was unilateral retreat, he said. He didn't. He changed the way of killing to make it even wider and extensive. That is to kill the whole population without food, without water, without electricity, without communication. This is what's going on. So it has intensified the means of wiping out, intensified the way of carrying the genocide effectively to kill children who need milk, medicine, those who have been wounded, to be eliminated before medicine reaches the Tigray area. And that is no other definition can be given, closer to genocide other than siege of war. So they just resisting the siege of war. And the siege of war is, you fight it in every corner you can. In every access, you have. But Tigray is still, northern part and western part of Tigray is still occupied by those forces who have perpetuated genocide for the last 8 months. Secondly, before we go to the definition of genocide, we should have gone to the genesis of the war. The Genesis war was going on for the last 30 years. The Tigrayans being minority, there was resentment why they come to the center. They should remain in the periphery. But they have done good job. Despite the good job they have done, despite lack of recognition, those people who are in the center who have been ruling for a long time, they want back the seat. But they had the seat, they had it for 400 years. They brought nothing. In any society there are dynamic people. Look the Jewish, what they did. They did no crime in 1945. All they did was winning their daily bread. But Hitler killed them because they were hardworking.
marked them with yellow stars,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
eliminated them for no crime, being only Jewish.
Yeah, yeah.
This is what has happened.
His case was different in a sense.
Okay,
that
and then
because of
when
the
it
way
comes-
he
let
had
me
been
finish.
raised,
Let
the
me
way
give
he
you
had
the
been
genesis
raised,
of the war.
that's why he hated
Yeah.
the Jews. Yeah.
Let me give you the genesis of the war. The last hour, on the 3rd of November, what Abiy has been trying to convince the whole world was the TPLF started to shoot the Ethiopian forces who were based in the northern part of Ethiopia. Never, it didn't happen. He was trying to question the leadership when they were having a meeting at Planet Hotel. But luckily, they got a tip from Addis Ababa, and they dispersed it, and they preempted them. The commanders who came to kill them were eliminated there. But the forces were, as I said earlier, they were already on the border of Tigray,
Yeah.
western and northern. So who started the war? Themselves. And when did it? 3 years ago, even blocking roads. Roads means blocking road means choking
Yeah, yeah.
the whole population.
Yeah.
The genocide started. Finally, what I would like to say, at each of these stages, there are measures to be taken, recommended by the professors and lecturers and scientists. We did. As an academic, we told them, both the Tigrayans as well as the central government, I have been appearing on Ethiopian television. This classification is not good. This symbolization is not good. This should be done. Discrimination should not be done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We were suggesting power sharing systems. And this dehumanization, finally, when it came, it became so acute, so crucial, and people were looking at you. We left at this stage. But we gave recommendations. I mean, when I say me, the academics. We invited, Oromo lecturers from the center to come to Mekelle University to give us lecture. Even many, the Amhara lecturers like Lidatu, we invited them. How should we come out of this quagmire, When there was a crisis coming up at each stage, we discussed with those enlightened and fair-minded, intellectuals in the center.
Okay.
They didn't heed.
I want us to focus on something else which we discussed before. That's the big problem in Ethiopia of ethnic federalism and ethnic nationalism politics. How does the country unite, which hasn't worked to solve these two problems? How does it unite? It's there in Nigeria. It's there in Uganda. It's there in most of these other countries, where there's nationalism, somebody who wants the entire country to unite, and then there is ethnic nationalism, where the tribal issue comes in. I can see the Ethiopian situation where Tigrayans are obviously, as I said, people are being picked up from the stations and so on, in walking the streets in Addis Ababa. Why? That again comes to ethnicity. It is happening not just in Ethiopia, in Uganda. It's happening in the Igbos. Why are they trying to split up from the rest of Nigeria? Because ethnicity has come into such a way that no one is coming in for unity to unite the country. Zawi, the former Prime Minister, Mayor Zawi, who died Zawi. He didn't do a good job in trying to unite Ethiopia. He didn't, and in fact, he probably encouraged
it, but he didn't impose it.
Yeah, he didn't impose it. He probably encouraged the ethnicity to grow, and when it grew, So how does it? Because this is where the whole genocide thing is being manifested. How do we solve this, Doctor?
Well, I think this is a rather very complex situation.
Yeah.
As you say, not only in Ethiopia but in Africa.
Yeah.
If you go out to the sea,
Yeah.
you have different types of fish.
Yeah.
Big fish, small fish.
Yeah.
And then the number of the various species vary as well.
Okay.
There, the order of nature is the majority swallowing the minority, or the big swallowing the small.
Okay.
But I think as Ethiopians and as Africans, we have to discover a better way of human order. We have to accept our diversity.
Yeah.
And we can celebrate in that diversity. But there has to be a situation of governance that would make everyone feel included. I mean, as Alex was saying earlier on, I mean, to a lot of people, including the mainstream government TV, the war started in November.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually,
it started a long time ago.
No, in the minds of a lot of Tigrayans, the war actually started in 2018. Because the Tigrayan people are actually open for a change.
Yeah, yeah.
Right after the change, when the Prime Minister went to Mekelle, and he made a speech, I have never seen the Tigrayan people clapping. He was just accepted so warmly. Because people wanted a change, naturally. I think the African people need a change every so often in their election exercise. And that is what is missing. And I think on the whole, the culture of silencing the opposition with the guns is a big problem. Because, Africa is not in a state of silencing the guns. It's using the guns to silence the opposition party. And whoever is in power wants to swallow the other parts that come his way or her way. So, in the minds of a lot of Tigrayans, they started to doubt the leadership after having said that Tigrayan people are like gold. This is how he described them. And he went to America in a couple of weeks and he said, "Their Highness." And as a leader of the government, he had been part of the leadership of the government, both the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, and quite a few of his allies. So they do own whatever is positive and negative from that EPRDF moment. So from the moment he started to demonize and dehumanize that population and that leadership, to the Tigrayan people it was very clear which is the lesser evil. Shall we go with the people we know? Or can we trust this man? And then I think there is that important thing that everybody needs to notice, the unholy alliance of Isaias Afwerki and Abiy. The acclaimed peace promoting person. In what way can he have a relationship with somebody who's an author of war? So in that influence, who learns what from who? And everybody knew, including some of the top leadership, opposition leaders in Ethiopia who are not Tigray, they said the arch enemy of Ethiopia is actually Isaias Afwerki.
That's the Eritrea president.
Not only has he got that revengeful attitude towards Tigrayans, but he doesn't want actually the integrity of Ethiopia. He sees that as a threat. So they quite rightly said, why wouldn't I go and have a dialogue politically with my counterpart in Tigray when the Prime Minister is going and having a chat with the arch enemy of Ethiopia? And this is the exact words. And in that unholy alliance, the parliament did not know, the people did not know, and the nearest neighbors, the Tigrayan people, did not know what entails this peace process. Of course, to the west there was an interest of the immigration issue. And when you go to a restaurant and you pay tip,
of course,
it's not for what you have done.
No.
It's to improve performance for when the next time you come. So that Nobel Peace Prize was given for what they expected him to do in the future. But in some ways, some analysts say that gave actually the license, to promote and energize and fuel up the whole process of profiling and dehumanizing and the rest of sequence of
so they should take it away from him then. They should certainly.
Obama's award was also controversial. I mean, he'd hardly done anything. But under him, there were a lot of drone warfare, innocents killed in these regime change wars. I would just say, look, in terms of should it be federal, should it be unitary? I mean, this is where true statesmanship, true leadership.
Ethnicity
has
a major role in all the African conflicts.
That's true.
All African conflicts have ethnicity, and somebody tries to say, like what we've had, to become nationalistic. That he did. He became a nationalist. That's Abe, like a nationalistic. Everybody supported him because he looked a nationalistic person who was going to unite the country. After Mary Zenawi's, of course, death, that gap was there. So, but when he came, what he said at the beginning and what happened are two different things. Because that's why I was saying that if Africa doesn't solve that problem of ethnicity, where I'm a Muganda, I come into power in Uganda, then call all the Baganda, my tribe, and then another person comes in, Museveni came in, call all the people from his area. It has that impact on the political structures of Africa, and it's so damaging. So to get a person like Mwalimu Nyerere in Tanzania, who united the entire Tanzania, Nelson Mandela in South Africa, the ethnicity disappears when you have a figure into government who doesn't really look at where he comes from, but looks at the entire country. This is the problem of Ethiopia, and it's a problem of most African countries. How do we deal with that?
I think in any unity, in any community, you have to explore a higher value that brings you together.
Okay, okay.
Now, imagine you are a Tigray, and we had Eritrean Liberation Front. We fought a senseless war for years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They got independent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now they come back on the red carpet as friends.
Yeah.
To make war with their own people. So who is more
Yeah.
Ethiopian? And then you have the Sudanese making an invasion on the west,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you turn a blind eye and say, no, it's okay. The Sudanese are our neighbors.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And you make a war that is tantamount to genocide
Yeah.
on the very people that you want them to say, I'm Ethiopian.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I think, as my colleague was saying, this is where you need a very higher and a very matured attitude of leadership. I think part of the problem we have in the leadership of Ethiopia is, I mean, Abiy has, the Prime Minister has said it quite clearly. From when he was 7 years old, his mother told him that he will be the 7th king of Ethiopia.
Really?
Yes, and he said this is public,
Yeah.
and I can send you the Amharic version of it. And he said, I have always lived with that thing in my mind, and whatever I do, I always keep that in mind.
I'll be king.
Yeah. So if he's going to be a king,
Yeah.
obviously he has to have the whole kingdom.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes sense. And if that is what he's going to take, he will use anything and any means,
Yeah, yeah.
even bring the devil into the equation,
Yeah, yeah.
provided he can stay in power.
In power, obviously, yeah.
And I think the other thing that also a lot of people don't notice is, when you say, I have been told that I will be a king, it's like some kind of a divinity or a prophecy about you
Yeah.
that should happen.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of, Protestant, Orthodox, and Muslim populations now,
Yeah.
where they have engaged in bringing that profile.
Yeah.
Like he's a messianic person. That even some I have seen say he would live for another 100 years. I mean, Haile Selassie did not even rule for 100 years. It's impossible for somebody to stay in power for 100 years.
Yeah.
So what you see is a combination of political and religious power to boost the image of a person and produce an aura around him, and then it's become difficult for people to think outside that box.
Yeah.
I mean, no leader is greater than the people it leads.
Of course not. Yeah.
And the unity and the welfare of the people is much better. And I hear that he is actually a born-again Christian.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, then I would expect that person to
He said
take
so. He said so.
Yeah, the example of Jesus. Jesus died for the sake of many.
Yeah.
And I would think this is the first time where we have a prime minister who claims to be a born again.
Yeah.
I mean, Mallas and all the others were atheistic.
Yeah.
They came, from, they didn't have that value. So, the natural expectation, and there is this thing called expectation and disappointment. I think he raised the expectation bar so high, talking about forgiveness, talking about prison places being empty, about love. And people were fed up with war and conflict. And they really impressed him all across. But in reality, the way Ethiopia is going is to genocide.
Of course.
And that is much worse than any situation.
Everybody's worried about that. There is one important comment which the report you gave me, which is something that towards the end somebody was making a huge suggestion in that report. Of course, most of the details about that report were documented about what is happening in that area of Tigray and what the government is doing and what they're trying to hide over a period of time. But what surprised them, this is something that I find, because the report goes on going into something I hadn't thought about, is the funding. The funding of the Tigrayans. the kind of unity that Tigrayans abroad, from America, from here in the UK, and from
Abroad in America.
Mainly America, the Canada, and so on, who are scattered around the globe, who have really got such a huge amount of money funded. Whatever is going on is not actually depending on any of a country, because sometimes countries tend to fund. I mean, Museveni was funded, Kenyatta at some point, all these other people, whenever there is a war, someone funds, puts some, because a war is the most expensive thing to do. Now, Tigrayans have surprised the Abe in a sense that they've lasted this long, and despite the fact that Tigrayans have come in as Eritreans have come in to support the Ethiopian, but they're still holding their ground. That is the big fun, because now Abe is gone to Turkey to get some arms and all that, because the whole thing is the main worry. This thing, the longer this thing takes, it's affecting him. Now, the thing I'm trying to find now, where does that if that unity factor is there among the Tigrayans,
Yeah,
can it still exist even within the Ethiopians, so that they could create a one Ethiopia?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Yeah, can it happen?
Yeah, to answer your first question,
Yeah,
if I had to blame on this genocidal war,
yeah.
90% of it, I would lay it on the intellectual, so-called educated doctors.
Yeah.
Not only those who are living in Ethiopia, those who are living outside, who have no fear and threats,
Yeah.
who wouldn't lose their job,
Yeah.
but only their conscience. But none of them have got their own gut or conscience. There were doctors, professors who was always, celebrating Adwa celebration every year, but never opposed the genocide. They should say, okay, wipe out the TPLF. Oh no, but not the people, they should have said at least.
Yeah.
They should stop the wanton killing, the wanton, rape, the gang rape and the spree of rape, at least that one. The siege they should have opposed if they had conscience and if they had the gut. These intellectuals who are misinterpreting federalism and unity in federalism.
Okay, that's a new
Are the
term
ones
now.
who are distorting and
Yeah.
creating all this war. In every war, there are ideologists.
Of course,
There are politicians who do the behind the curtain.
Yeah.
There was a deacon, well, he is still, Daniel by name. If you want to finish this war, all we have to drop is one bomb at each city. A deacon who carries cross. Jesus' cross.
Across, yeah.
And one of his advisors to the prime minister is a witchcraft. Maybe she is Pentecostal. She said, "Don't give mercy to the snakes."
Yeah.
Does Jesus say snakes seize all people?
Yeah.
These intellectuals who have got the crime.
It's a kind of demeanor, to try to
Okay.
demeanor the persons completely.
Hit a
Persons
nail
out
on the
there.
top of the genocide issue.
Yeah.
All I could refer you to is
Mm.
Textile stock.
Yeah.
The AU missionary who went to talk to him. They said personally, we will wipe them out for 100 years. Full stop.
So they will never appear.
And they
In
said
100
it
years, yeah.
so foolishly to highly internationally recognized authority.
Yeah.
The finishing of foreign minister, envoy of the AU, they said it word in word, in verbatim, we will wipe out Tigrayans. So no question that is genocide.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I have been tortured under Mengistu. But no one can
Mengistu,
say
yeah.
you haven't been tortured enough.
Yeah. That's what it says. No one
No one
say.
can, no textbook, no professor can say,
Yeah.
oh, you haven't been tortured enough.
Yeah. You.
Everyone knows his shoe where it pinches.
Mm.
Under Mengistu, when I was in prison, I didn't feel and felt, genocide. But now I did.
Yeah.
In my hometown, in my place here where I am safe physically, but mentally I have been tortured. My sisters, my relations have been wantonly killed.
Okay.
Her property has been destroyed. All of us, we are living in the UK or America, have been affected.
Yeah.
We hadn't had sound sleep the last 8 months. That's genocide for
Yeah,
example.
of course.
No different.
Of course.
Okay?
Abe.
Let me finish you
Okay,
the federal and all the TPLF leadership they said was, let's respect each other and live in harmony. Use your language, I will use my language. Help your people, I will help my people. And this idea was forwarded 1 century ago by King Johannes. He happened to be from Tigray. This is how he devolved, in fact, to resolve the federal conflict, the ethnic conflict. That guy who didn't go to university like those professors had this idea. Look after your people, I will look after mine. Don't harm or harness your people, I will not. But when we have an external enemy, we stand together and fight it off. But for now, we have to govern our people in a manner, justifiable manner, in a democratic manner.
Of course,
This is 100
100
years ago. 100 years. This is what they applied. As to the finance, you said, I was not a member of the PLM. But this time, I contributed for humanity's sake. So many people, white people, I've got now in my garden lots of Nido milk, shoes, shirts. Alex, with your connection, can you
send them over there?
People whom I know or whom I don't know. When you are suppressed, that gives you energy to revenge your enemy. To bring you this, to crystallize what we have discussed. The Jew started the Israeli state from nothing.
From nothing, of course. Everybody knows
and the Tigrayans have got at least the brain.
That history,
Their brain will not be raped. Their land will not be raped. Their faith will not be raped. All the institutions, like churches, mosques have been destroyed.
Of course.
This is part of the genocide. They could not destroy their mind, their head. This made them even stronger. Abiy could have won the Tigrayans by outsmarting what the PLF failed to do to address the economic problems they had. The injustice or the administrative, maladministration they had experienced under the PLF. If he had liberalized, if he had improved the economy, without a bullet, he could have won the Tigray people as they have shown his support. As what he said, oh, you are gold people, you are the engineers of the country. But in actual fact, what he was plotting was to wipe them out because they are trained for his dream, his delusion. This is why I blame him only 5%, because he's delusionist.
Okay.
But the intellectuals are the big people to be blamed.
Can I just put something there as well? What shocked me, and I heard it in Tigray now, and I can pass it to you as well. He speaks Tigray, the Prime Minister. He came out on a TV that addresses Tigrayan people, and he said, how is it that rumors are going around that I am going to employ the Eritreans to come and be with me to crush the Tigrayans? And his very words were, it is even evil to think about this. It is even evil. And when a person says something and does the opposite, there's going to be a huge trust issue, credibility issue. And where would you trust that person?
Because he said one thing and he did the other.
Absolutely. So where is he taking Ethiopia? I'm not sure. I mean, the party says prosperity party, but the pathway seems to be poverty and destitution. So when are people going to wake up where we are heading? When are they going to jump out of the train? Because we have this big problem, which is also manifested in the rest of Africa, where there is a religious sect that believes in false prophecy, in false dreams. People are rising and say, "Oh, God has given you, everything on your side. Go and demolish them. Don't show mercy because God says, I have not shown any mercy." And this is a woman praying for him from an alleged telephone conversation. So when you have over 40 million people who are most likely Protestant pro the Prime Minister, he's got a huge base. And he's got an access to the Muslims and access to the Orthodox, and he can speak in a way that you want. And if he cannot convince you, well, as one of the regional presidents of the Oromo has said, we use the tactic of convince and confuse. So even the international media and international people are confused because he tries to convince them there is no Eritrean. The next time There is a big, you know,
presence of Eritreans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a saying, you cannot steal a camel and by stooping try to hide because people can see the camel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it can't. It can't. Are they
The federal issue.
the ethnicity and the federal issue? Nigeria has had that for a very long time, and obviously other parts of Africa have had it, and I can see it coming up to Ethiopia. It's a similar thing, regardless of what is happening in the country. The ethnicity and nationalism. These two things are affecting the African continent. No matter which part of Africa you come from, either somebody has to come in and try and unite them. I mean, Ghana is trying, because you can see the elections that have been in Ghana, one party losing and the other. Zambia now has got that solved in a certain way, because the new man is coming and the other man has gone. You see that areas where people are beginning to accept it, maybe with a level of education and so on. How does Ethiopia overcome this, if you can see it as an outsider?
Well, I mean, I think by some measure of analogy, I mean, I think certainly you need people who can steer a country by using certain values, unifying universal values that the people can aspire to. Ethiopia does have a good background to achieving that.
Okay.
For some, it may smack of something tending towards Amhara domination, or certainly Highlander domination, that is Amhara's, Tigrayans, etc. But I'm thinking about a country like Russia.
Okay.
Many ethnicities, like Ethiopia, under Mengistu, the Soviet Union was the successor state of the Russian Empire. And how do you unify these people? In many ways, we can talk all we like about unitary and federalism, but in many ways, part of Africa, the African situation does require a strong central leadership.
Okay, it does.
One that is benevolent. And in Ethiopia's case, it's got to be different from the Amhara dictatorship of the monarchy of Haile Selassie. It's got to be different from the reign of terror of the Derg.
Okay.
I think the TPLF, through the auspices of the party they created, I mean, it was dominated by the Tigrayans. They made mistakes, but they did certainly bring, something towards the development of the country, particularly with regard to the great Ethiopia Renaissance Dam. Yeah. This is where the Africans leave, the eyes go off the ball.
Okay. Okay.
You need strong government, but you also need, time is going. Africa needs to develop.
Of course.
I'm not sure that liberal democracy is necessarily going to be the way, but neither is it going to be a sort of a kind of a ethnically chauvinistic dictatorship.
Yeah.
But you need for disparate people, just like in the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, you really need a strong center, whether you're going to call it unitary or federal.
Yeah.
All I see from Ethiopia, just because I can talk from experience in Nigeria and I'm looking at other African countries, are ethnicities vying for power. And that's not the way to go about it. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but this is the way, and let's also talk about the intellectual classes, this is the way things should progress. And you see, we're coming to a stage in human history where the world has been dominated for a long time by Westerners, white Europeans, Western Europe and
America,
North America. And there's a competition for resources. Africa is minerally rich. It has everything there.
Of course.
But the outlying areas in Europe, certainly in Japan, China, the rising power, they don't have resources. So see, these the Europeans dominated Africa. Colonialism was a bit of a burden. It became very expensive for them.
They
found it cheaper giving independence
Yeah.
and ruling through stooges like Mobutu Sese Seko and countless others.
No, but it had lost its prime at the time. It had started going sour for them because they couldn't have more
For
of
who?
their people. For the Europeans, they
Yeah.
couldn't have more of their people coming in because rivalry had begun. People had started opening up. Because when they sent people here for education, the Nkurumas, the Mumbas, people suddenly started realizing, hang on a minute, you can come and actually rule me in my own country. You come in and you bring in your laws and you do this. So suddenly they started having opposition, and they knew with opposition, especially like in Kenya, nobody wanted to go and live in Kenya and be part of the dominant white, because they were being persecuted and killed every now and then. So because it was happening, it started becoming expensive for them, just like Afghanistan became too expensive for them. And the only way out is, we spent billions here, we better get out.
But you see what my point, my overarching point is, West doesn't have the resources.
Yeah, yeah.
They need to get it from places like Africa. And the same thing with China. If we have these conflicts in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, which, as I said, has a good background to foster unity, because it's thousands of years old civilization. And it has these ancestral connection points that could be used.
The structure is there in
to
Ethiopia.
fuse
Very good structure is there. Like I said, if they can sort out the ethnicity and nationalism, the structure very good in Ethiopia. The issue of, for example, a new constitution, which could put term limits, for example, to a head of state, because with Abiy gone, America is already looking forward. In an article I read in the
Today.
An article, not in one of in a Time magazine, Time magazine of America. Somebody was, an Ethiopian actually, one of the scholars, was looking at a suggestion of saying, hey, if we have a leader who, if we put a hold on Abiy's time in office, and a new leader comes in, changes are always happening when someone new comes. He comes in with new ideas. Look at what Obama did. Look at Biden is doing now. He said, no, not on my watch. I need everybody home. There are policies that are happening because a new person has come in, and it's affecting Uganda. It's affecting all these countries where people have stayed longer in power because the structure doesn't change. It's the same. You may change a minister here, but the structure is the same.
I think it's the mentality that obviously needs to be changed.
Yeah.
You can change systems.
Yeah.
But even when Tito died,
what happened?
then they did a rotation system, but it all fell apart. Serbia, Korea, and it was very easy for people to intervene. So what my point is, what any overarching point should be, and I appreciate my two colleagues here are very emotionally invested in what is happening to their people. But looking forward in foresight, it's more than just manufacturing institutions. That may play a part, a rotation system, a limitation. The question is, what vision does Abiy Ahmed have? I know that Meles Zenawi did have one, and the central point was that dam. I think the idea for any part of Africa, given the pressure Africa is going to be under, if the Europeans feel that their populations are diminishing, they're losing power, China is rising, and China is coming into Africa, the overarching point I'm making is that these wars, whether they look minor or whether they are of the magnitude of genocide, are hindering development. And people need to realize, whether they think they have the upper hand, they can't set the bar so low just to have peace and a pacified region. I don't see anybody, whether in Ghana or Zambia that you mentioned, actually taking up the mantle of what Nkrumah started. Perhaps what Achampong did for the first 2 years before things went haywire, which is actually making Africa politically and economically independent, industrializing Africa, not just making people barely literate, and then farming and that sort of thing, and then becoming service economies to the West, selling your raw materials. You need a grand plan. Ethiopia has part of that. You know, Gaddafi had his great Man
River
River project. Ethiopia has that to build on, but they just need enlightened leadership to take the reins and to bring up unity.
Again, that's that's the issue that I'm trying to put up across, because the lack of getting because the parties in Ethiopia are on ethnic lines. You can't find the parties are Tigrayans and they're on ethnic lines. Now, if you are going to get them to have the national cake all together, then they shouldn't be based on ethnic line. And ethnic line is where Africa has had a problem. The man is a Ghanaian, the man is an Ashanti, the man is an Igbo man, the man is a Muganda. The structure of that, that's why Tanzania didn't have that. When Nyerere did that. That's why even now they have a woman in office, Chama cha Mapinduzi, the party. Because the structure he built, he had the language issue as well, because when they speak Swahili, maybe that is helping. Now, Ethiopia needs to get to that level. This is why I'm trying to get it from the Ethiopians themselves. How can this happen?
This is what I tell you, the blame falls on the intellectuals, the ideologists, the advisors, the clergists, the so-called people who speak about unity are disuniting Ethiopia. If Ethiopia has to be united, TPLF has to be involved. In fact, the big message I have to the international community is Ethiopia can be only spared from disintegration by TPLF for two reasons. It's organized, politically astute, and it knows the structure. The rest are not. The Amharas, although they speak unity, what they are doing is disunity. Abiy has no vision. Hereby, the international community hasn't recognized its genocide because they don't want to bear the cost. Genocide is not a crime of one country, one continent. It's all humanity.
Of course.
And the cost goes to United Nations. And United Nations is a club of nations. And nations recognize nations. No matter what dictator he is. Isaias Afwerki is the worst dictator we have. He has no prime minister, he has no deputy, he has no parliament, he has no constitution. Any man who will be friends with such a man must be the worst dictator.
That issue of Eritrea is something else which has also divided the Western world. The Eritrea's involvement with Abiy, and after saying he's not sitting at the same table, he's not drinking at the same table, now he has advised him to go to Turkey and get more arms. Now someone else is also advising the Tigrayans to go somewhere else, and China or one of these Arab states to get something as well. Now, this is what will probably continue this war to the next, like the Sudanese war, to almost 20 years. Because if you have the backers, you have people who are backing you. Like now, as you are saying, Tigrayans abroad in a year can raise up to $2 to $3 million, and that's enough money to buy so many guns and so many ammunition.
The guns, let me tell you, don't go far. The guns, the ammunition, the weapon, they get it from their enemy. The provision, I tell you.
I mean, I understand that. I mean, look, I understand that. They have that culture, the Woyani culture, which can be looked at in a negative way. It's used in a disparaging way, as a bandit or something. And so that's the other problem, despite the hardships and the calamities on them. They're voracious fighters. And I think there's a phrase from the Nigerian Civil War that the Biafrans would use, that the enemy is actually our quartermaster. So that's why the Tigrayans have done this, and people. There was one professor, he might have been quite very sympathetic to the Tigrayans, but he was saying, look, what they have done will go into the military manuals of, war colleges. I don't know how much more time we have, but, one thing I would just want to say, before it escapes my mind, speaking about genocide, I think, in this conflict, without saying who is right or wrong, we'll leave it at that. Without saying who's right or wrong, the Ethiopian, federal Ethiopian government under Abiy Mohammed, have gone about this in a totally wrong manner.
Yeah.
Because they have not waged a war, a surgical war against the TPLF, who they designated as criminals. Now, there can be a debate about that because of the failings in terms of human rights when they were in power. But they have certainly gone against the whole people. And so it's a war against the Tigrayans. I think objectively, people should recognize that. Unfortunately, both sides, but certainly from the Ethiopian side, you do have people just thinking about, let's punish the TPLF and let's also punish the Tigrayans, because that hatred, you know, the sort of thing that you know, Igbos have experienced in Nigeria, Armenians in the Ottoman Empire, that's what has happened. So I would just want people to think again towards the future, even though the present moment is so unbearable.
It is.
In terms of the suffering that is happening. Is that, look, during the TPLF's era, I mentioned this in the essay I wrote, which appeared to be very critical of the TPLF, you know, before they did relinquish power. You had two areas of what could have been, you could say, were approaching genocide. They were certainly under the radar of Genocide Watch. And that concerns the Somalis of the Ogaden region. Because of the bringing in Chinese there, and there were these oil and gas concessions there. People were displaced. And even at that time, there were claims about rape being used as a weapon.
Of course.
And people being forcibly displaced. The other, apart from the Ogaden, is the Gambela region, the Anuak people, who are different from the lighter skinned Highlanders. And, you know, are less developed there. They also were displaced and mistreated. So I think it's not about saying, oh, this is schadenfreude for the Tigrayans or the Ethiopians. It's because a lot of these resettlements, including of Tigrayans, I think happened during Mengistu's time. And they were making the Gambela region with the forests, etc. They were making room for Tigrayans there. So look, as the Russian intellectual Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, I think people need to reflect about what they have all done. Everybody needs to reflect, and it's not about scorekeeping, okay? It's about every group of people, because he was making an analogy with the Russian Revolution, in which all range of people were involved, including Jewish people, who today the right wing will say were the overseers of the NKVD and the Holodomor, in which a lot of Christian Russians were massacred, killed in revenge for their pogroms, okay? So what I'm saying is reflection. What did we do wrong? Every people has something in their past that they have to be shameful about. And I think that needs to be taken into account. Also, very quickly, another thing before it slips my mind, Erdogan, and also the Tigrayans having options with the OLA, Oromo Liberation Army, and they could do a number of things in terms of widening the conflict there.
It's going
and we want that to be avoided.
That's what I was telling you, because from what I gathered in the Times newspaper, in the Times magazine, Abiy has started arming
Turkey?
From Turkey. He's arming Oromos. Is it Oromo? The militias from Oromo and other smaller militias to go in and attack Tigray, and saying, look, it's a kind of a divide and rule kind of thing, whereby you say, I'm giving you arms, these are your enemies, this is what they're doing. So the united structure...
Are they falling for it?
Yeah, they're falling for it already. Because he's realized even some Ethiopians from his own regions no longer want to go and fight. They've had enough. They don't want to go. So because they no longer want to go, that is why he's moving on to Turkey and so there's a lot going on. Sorry, we're coming towards the end of the program, and I just want the last words from each one of you on what, because what is really happening in the country. Is there any way a dialogue can be reached and we avoid a genocide, and we avoid a much bigger genocide like the one in Rwanda? Is there a way we can, a dialogue can be reached? I mean, you Ethiopians, you know your regions very well. Is there a way this can happen or it can't happen? Because at the beginning, before the conflict started, people tried to go in and talk to Tigrayans. Abe, I think the people who are listening to Abe went in with, there was a lady who was in charge of either the deputy vice president went in to talk to the Tigrayans, and there were other people who came in. They didn't want a war. They didn't want this war.
Yeah.
It so happened that now it's here. But what do we do? How do we do to prevent it from becoming like Sudan? 20 years, 40 years almost, the Sudanese were fighting the north and the south. And yet they could have also solved that war at the very beginning. Because it was simple. We want to rule our area, you rule your area. And now they ended up 40 years later doing the same thing. Sudan Liberation Army is in the south, the other Sudan is in the north. That's what the 40 million lives went down because of simple things that people could have avoided. Can that happen in Ethiopia?
It's possible.
I think in desperate times, people take desperate measures.
Yeah.
At this point in time, the escalation is quite frightening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's widening.
Mm.
The conflict is widening.
Yeah, yeah. It
It's
could
like
take the whole country now.
It's like what I said earlier on. You cannot have a fire start in an Australian jungle
Yeah.
or Californian forest and expect it to die on its own. The momentum that is, the way it's fueled is quite alarming. So yes, at leisurely time we can talk about the future of Ethiopia once we cross the river.
Yeah.
But at the heat of the moment, if somebody hits your leg or arm, that's fine. If somebody chokes you, you would do everything in your might
To survive,
yeah.
yeah.
And even the United Nations Convention, when genocide reaches stage 8 or 9, then people who are victims should actually be armed to protect themselves, or
Yeah.
somebody should intervene.
Yeah.
Because you are reaching a point of a wipeout or extermination of a population.
Okay.
So it's at a boiling point at the moment. Both sides are, maybe one is taken from the Ethiopian government, and in the end, this all weapons are being, bought at the expense of the national
Of course.
development.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So where are we heading? Who is going to be the winner? So to me,
Good question, yeah.
it's a time of reflection at the highest level. In any family, if the humility starts from the father,
Yeah.
then things can correct themselves. There's no point in saying to your child, say sorry,
Yeah.
if you haven't set an example to say sorry.
Sorry yourself, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think humility is the way forward, and dialogue is the only way out of the situation.
I hope they're listening to the message.
Yes,
Mm.
it's a simple answer.
Mm.
If there is a political will.
Yeah.
Where there is will, there is a way.
Okay.
Let me quote the spokesman of TPLF or TDF, Getachew Reda,
Yeah.
who sat with me when we were commemorating Meles' anniversary on the 4th of his death. If Abiy is willing to sell Ethiopia,
Yeah.
there is simple, which doesn't cost him anything at all, to allow the Tigray people to use their own money, to lead that communication, and to open the banks, and allow electricity, full stop.
Even a
They survive.
if you
Simple
cannot
as
manage-
simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then allow humanitarian aid,
Yeah, to come in here.
and that will stop the war. At least it will stop for some. It will pause it.
Yeah.
And then they will get time to reflect. And release those people who have been in prison,
the prisoners,
without any court order or without any justification, without any crime.
Yeah.
And all the people who have been, subjugated to torture, like the founder of the PLF, who is 84. What would he gain out of an 84 man, torturing and imprisoning him?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
And get rid, all those foreign forces, like the Eritrean forces,
Yeah.
who are encroaching on Ethiopian borders.
Yeah.
That will stop the war. And the rest will come.
Yeah.
How to go about forward will be
Yeah.
discussed, whether it is federal or central or
Yeah.
peripheral or co-federation will be discussed when you have something to eat
In
first
your- in your stomach,
and save
yeah.
yourself from wounds.
Yeah.
And if you have light and you have communication.
Yeah.
That when all these are, blocked, if you are under siege, the only way you think about is
how to survive, yeah.
I think it's just simply a cessation of hostilities. Have people withdraw who are not supposed to be there, like the Eritrean army, and keep the Sudanese out of it. Bring in the African Union to do its job. They are not well, you see, before you go to the UN, that's the thing. They should have used it, even though Abiy may deny that Article 4G or H is about non-interference. The other one is about, well, when things like genocide and war crimes are happening, a collective responsibility. Now, that may open the door to a certain kind of intervention that isn't wanted. You want peacekeepers there, police corridor areas. But certainly, I'm just a bit shocked at the way the war is being prosecuted, because even though the things were very brutal in Nigeria, you did have foreign observers, you had a certain element of transparency, and you had a leader who was constantly saying, these are our brothers. Even if it might have been a bit disingenuous, it's the leadership, we want them out, but we want to embrace them as brothers. That is not coming out. I'm sorry.
That's the unfortunate. This is the time. This is the time. This is the time we have. Sorry, maybe next time. I just want to thank you all for coming in, and I just want to thank you all for coming in and giving us your views on this issue. And I do hope that our viewers have enjoyed the program, and at the same time also make up their mind on what's going on and what we should do. I hope we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks. Thank you very much for watching us, and may God bless you.
Working for who will go all lengths to achieve results. We have worked with him for some time now, and we will recommend him to anyone who wants to buy a land. If you want your valuations done on your land, he's the best man. If you need land title documents done for your company, I would recommend him to be the right person to do so. In the near future, if I want to buy a land again, I will go for Christian, and I recommend you to do same.
Enjoy some fabulous rewards. Get a cool £10 reward when you receive £100 or more from the UK. Tell your friends and family in the UK to send money to your mobile money wallet or bank account using Express Pay and get an extra £10. Terms and conditions apply.